Getting hit multiple times coming out of that bike section. More drivers coming to blows. Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back here to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors. This is round number 11 of this season, coming to you today from Ledenon. My name is Ron Maunz. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Howie Burroughs. Guido Marzucchi is our producer for today's broadcast. Now, Howie, we have done many Formula Ford broadcasts together on a different network, on a different show, but this is going to be a bit different. These races for the Weekend Warriors double the length in the officials that we usually cover. This is your first time covering Weekend Warriors action, so welcome into the world of Weekend Warriors. This is kind of like a vacuumous pit. Once you come in, you can never escape.
I'm very excited to be here, Ron. I hear this is where the good racing is, and it's a very large field and a very large race to deal with. Here at Ledenon, this track was not very popular when it first launched on iRacing, but the moment it became free, everybody was forced into the crucible. It is an absolute roller coaster. Tricky track limits at the top of the hill, and then you plunge down multiple times with cars that basically have nothing to stick them to the ground. It's very tricky in almost anything, these cars especially, but it makes it a real driver's test.
Yeah, this is a test of a driver's patience, nerves, everything you can imagine. This track was the site of the first ever Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors race here on SMB a matter of about a year and a half ago. It is a unique ride. The Formula Vs were here not too long ago. Formula Fords, it has been a little while since we saw this track play host to an FF race, but usually puts on a lot of fun, expecting that to be the case here today. Currently about 7 minutes away from the end of this qualifying session. Do want to let you know right at the top of the show that today's broadcast of the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors here on SMB is sponsored by Window Shadow Photo Studios, providing high-quality artistic track day photos from the Northeast. Visit www.windowshadowstudios.net for more information. But the business taken care of, let's take a look at the championship point standings as we head off into the penultimate round of the season. Lots of stories have been developing. This is actually the first time I've been back here in the FF booth in about 2 weeks after taking some time off to try and audition for my role in the upcoming reboot of the Will Rogers Follies. But Mikey Pollard is going to be your championship points leader. Roy was able to usurp the gap that Maurizio Nazelli had earlier on this season. Nazelli's still out because of heel spurs. We want to wish him nothing but the best, but he's avid at this point in the season. Mikey Pollard is most certainly in it to win it, holding on to a 101 point tally between himself and Richard Harwood at this point in the season. Nazelli, as I mentioned a few moments ago, is slotted in third. Ian Anderson is in fourth, with Christopher Cash rounding out your top five. Should be noted, I don't believe we'll be seeing Cash throughout the later part of this season once to take a step back from racing here in these Formula Fords. We take a look now at Spec 2, where it has been the story of dominance throughout most of this season for Dmitry Lukanov, the newcomer who made his debut in this series in round number 2 at Sebring, has put in some incredible performances off the back of now 3 straight podium finishes overall in these races, and of course 3 straight wins in Spec 2 as a result. He holds on to 700 points as his present tally. Kevin Adrian is slotted in second at 529. Paul Jackson, Peterson, Rocha, and SMB's very own Mr. Joshua Wilkie complete your top 5 in the Spec 2 point standings. And now we'll take a look at the Masters category, where in my absence, we've really seen a change of momentum and a change of guard in the Masters category. Jörg Mani, the janitor, who absolutely cleaned the floor a couple of seasons ago here in this series. It looks like he's returned to form off the back of now multiple wins this season. He holds on to that championship points lead. 727 points is his tally. Antonio Reese is slotted in second with Jeff Wubker, Alan DeGassis, and David Lehman completing your top 5 in the Masters category. So that's how it looks in the championship point standings heading off into this penultimate race. Ledenon is going to be a super tricky challenge, and to underscore that, Howie, let's do an onboard lap with Daniel Verone.
Remember ruining the day of this place ever since I started as a rookie, and then I got used to it. The triple goal share, I'm not going to be able to say many of these terms correctly, but you've got to go as wide as you can and not go over the line as you hit that third apex as you do your first run down the hill. I'm over trying to name these corners, but turn 5 is a very quick U-turn. You've got to take advantage of that elevation change all the way down and all the way up. That'll unsettle the car, but there's an even crazier one coming up. I always get caught by the track limit on the exit of turn 6 here. You can get 4 wheels over the white line, and drivers here like Daniel Varron using every single last bit of it. Then this is the real roller coaster. You want to throw your car as fast as you can into the first half, try and keep it stuck. You can use all the curb on the outside and then slow it just enough to get back up the hill, where, what do you get when you hit the top of the hill at Ledenon? You get another track limits feast. Does seem like you've got to use all those white lines at the top of the track, because we're going to go down and up one last time. That's going to be La Servier, I think, or something like that. However the French pronounce their corner names, I'll never really know. Downhill roller coaster, and then suddenly a hard stop as you go hard to the left all the way back up. It's a lot of corners, 14 of them for a place this small, and you've got to keep this car glued to the ground, which is very, very hard when there's nothing keeping it there.
Yeah, this Formula Ford car is rather notorious for being a bit slidey. They changed it a couple of seasons ago to make the car a little bit easier. Maybe it's just my unique driving style. I've actually found the car very difficult to drive ever since they kind of updated the way the suspension moved and all that stuff. But this is definitely a big challenge for these racers, and part of the reason why it is challenging here in this week is because we've got some familiar-ish names here in the Weekend Warriors world, either returning for the first time in quite some time or returning for the first time in maybe about a half a season. Simon Ball is your current provisional pole sitter in that number 76 car, saying a 125.8 at the moment. Aero Gnome, a driver who I don't think I've seen participate in Weekend Warriors Formula Ford action in many, many moons. I'm trying to think now. I think the last time that he was running in one of these races was back in season 2 maybe of 2024. That was before these shows were even on SMB. That was back when they were still on PBS Kids. So it's been a while since Aero Gnome participated in one of these races and still has that same pace, not even a half a tenth behind Simon Ball. Dmitry Lukanov is currently your provisional pole sitter in the Spec 2 category, about 0.2 of a second off a Ball, and Antonio Reese holds on to the pole at the moment in the Masters class. So waiting to see some of the final times, though, with a minute and a half less than that left now here in qualifying. Really getting into crunch time.
It's nice to have a track in these Formula Fords where you don't get massive draft runs. You might be able to get a little bit coming out of that final turn up the hill, but the first turn doesn't really give you many chances to make a big dive bomb, because you have to stick it side by side with someone for the entire long distance of what makes 3 apexes up on the top of that hill. Varying lines running side by side are going to be interesting. I think there's more space than people give it credit for here, but you've got to be very, very high skill to run off the line, and you've got to have a lot of trust in the person you're running next to. That's a new pole lap. Aero Gnome at 1 minute to go, and he imagines to set one that's just faster by 100th.
Yeah, and the driver from Estonia really impressing here. That's a 125.808. That's a super quick lap time. Simon Baldo right in tow, slotted in P2. 100th is a gap between those two competitors. Mikey Pollard, who at this point in the season has really given himself the championship lead, and he's got to give himself the pole. Look at that, a 125.648. The driver looking to cap off a brilliant season with the championship win. Looking to cap off the season with another good run in qualifying. That may not be the first pole from Mikey Pollard this season, but it's probably the most impressive because it did not look like he was going to get it. It looked like Aero Gnome and Simon Ball had his number, but as it turns out, Pollard able to swing and swing hard.
It's one of the advantages of open qualifying. I don't really watch it that often, but the track will just get faster and faster and faster and faster, and your tyres might get more and more up to temperature in 20 minutes, and then suddenly a surprise lap comes out of nowhere. Everyone's still got a lap to finish on the board. I'm not sure if any of his top 3 are going to challenge. I was going to say about Mikey, it's sort of nice to be in a position where, you know, you're quite comfortable going into the finale. You know, you don't really need to stress too much. I'm sure some other people in motorsports would be very, very happy to have that, and they don't have that right now. But it appears as if he's still got that full competitive spirit in him if he's just going to fly one out at the very end of qualifying like that.
Yeah, so Pollard feeling very good as we get to the end of this qualifying session, get to the end of this season. Started off this season in brilliant form with a win in the opening round of the championship at Alton Park. But then things looked to be the Maurizio Nazelli shows. He was very consistent, very dominant, but ever since he dropped out, Mikey Pollard was able to grab that championship points lead. And ever since a few weeks ago when he was able to obtain it, he really isn't going to look back. So it looks like everybody just wrapping up their qualifying session. And for I'm looking through now. I believe this would be only the second time this season. It's actually the third time this season. My apologies. And second time in a row, Mikey Pollard looks like he is going to be starting this race from the pole position. Pretty good lap time from him, and that was a comfortable gap between himself and Gnome. As much as the gap between Gnome and Ball was rather on the smaller end, Pollard able to jump up into P1 with a comfortable margin. That was quite big. The first driver in this session, the only driver in this session, in fact, to break below a 125.8.
And George Mani just secured 6th place while qualifying was wrapping up, moved up 1 position over Daniel Burroughs. That's going to put him quite close to his Masters rival, Antonio Reyes. I think it's only Ian Anderson left to run around there. Not even. I'm trying to track down who it is. I'm always curious. It is Antonio Reyes doing a cool down lap on the track just to keep us waiting in the middle of the French countryside. We see the castle off the side of the track. That's the session wrapping up. We have our 21 car starting grid.
Yes, a 21 driver set to take the green flag here at Ledenon for round number 11 of this season, and hopefully all of you tuning into this broadcast will be able to enjoy it. We got a short pace lap, so let's go through it. The 21 starters for this 11th race of the season. It's going to be Mikey Pollard leading them to green after saying a 125.648. He's going to be joined on the front row by the Estonian of Gnome. Row number 2 will be Simon Ball alongside your Spec 2 pole sitter of Dmitry Lukanov. Antonio Reese and Jörg Mani going to make up an all-masters row number 3. Daniel Verone will start this race in 7th alongside the returning Christian Kabanka. Ian Anderson will start this race in 9th with Chris Murakami completing your top 10.
Up at 11th, we have Andrew Love for the Masters alongside Alan Degassis. Kevin Adrian in 13th next to Jim Brewster. Andrew Hurd is in 14th next to Peterson Rocha. Then on the next row, it's Paul Jackson, Michael G. Nelson, Peter Smetana, Todd Schreid. And I actually don't know if Scott Russell set a lap, so I might have thrown you off your game by saying 21. I think we'll be seeing 20 on the grid today.
See, as long as it is marked as a driver that could line up on the grid, I'll call it 21. So that's what we're going to do. The grid for this race can legally drink, so we'll take the wins when they can be allotted. Just to touch on some of the storylines that have come out of qualifying, it has been just tit for tat in the Masters category for qualifying this season. Antonio Reese, that is only his 2nd pole position thus far this season after his pole in round number 1 at Alton Park. Actually, I will amend my statement there. That's actually his 3rd pole position, and the first time he's sat on the pole since Long Beach a couple of weeks ago, and he was on the pole for round number 2 at Sebring. I was actually looking at my race winners graph there. Unfortunately, with the color scheming that I have on my phone, setting it to dark mode, it changes the colors around me on my graph, so sometimes I'm a little bit confused. But Antonio Reese kind of usurping Jörg Mani in that qualifying session, with those two going to be joining themselves on the row number 3, so probably gonna see some nice festivities between those racers. Dmitry Lukanov, another pole for him. That's his 4th pole position in a row in the Spec 2 category. He's going to look to keep it strong. Mikey Pollard, his 2nd pole in a row, his 3rd pole in the past 4 races. He's got to look to impress as we get to the end of this season. But here we go, folks. The field lining up onto that start-finish straightaway right now. It's going to be Mikey Pollard and Gnome comprising your front row, waiting for that green flag to come out, which it has now, and the drivers are on their way. Mikey Pollard gets off to a flyer. Gnome does not. Now Simon Ball gonna try and apply the pressure as they head their way into turn number 1 side by side. Simon Ball jumps his way up in a second. Now look at Dmitry Lukanov. Nearly won last time at Sonoma. He wants to try and get that W before the end of this season. He's slotted in 4th. Everybody making up some moves. Kevin Adrian, Peterson, and Rocha both up 2 spots a little bit farther behind, but still Pollard over Ball.
Pretty good getaway from Pollard. It can be easy to run those those rolling start green flags, but it's always got to, catching people out is always something you've got to be ready to do, and Ball was thankfully prepared to hold on to that P2. Got to shout out to Dmitry Lukanov's design, by the way. I would always shout out an anime design every time I see it, and he's holding up quite well ahead of several of the Spec 2 drivers. The next one is about 5-6 cars back from him as we're already having spins at the back. That is Peterson Russia. And a couple more.
Oh my goodness!
Who is that just died?
That's
somebody. Peter Smetana.
Yeah, that's Peter Smetana. He's up in the air. He's out of this race. Petrus and Rocha out to Todd Shuey, I think, was one of the first drivers to pile into that incident, along with Michael Nelson. Big drama as they headed their way down through the roller coaster section, out of 8 into 9. Up at the front, though, it is still tame with Mikey Pollard over Simon Ball over Aeronome. That completes your podium now. Dmitry Lukinov and Antonio Reese may start to squabble up soon. We were expecting a little bit of drama at the start of this race. Frankly, this track is rather conducive to drivers sliding, and it all started with just a lone self-spin, and after that, it just snowballed out of control from there.
I think that's going to be the source of a lot of accidents around here. I think it's not going to be a case of drivers ending up in each other's stuff due to being aggressive. It's going to be people slipping up in a car that's easy to slip up on a track that's trying to slip you up. I mean, it did happen going down the hill where that weight transfers. If you're not ready for it, that's where you're going to be caught the most, and I doubt that's going to be the first time, so going to be expecting plenty more of that as it goes down. Simon Ball's caught up to Mikey Pollard. Here's the replay of the incident, and was it on the elevation change or was it on an unexpected curb as we do fly down the hill? It's weird that the weight transferred there, and that's unlucky to get caught like that, and it's a different incident that causes the massive flip for Smetana. Here's the other one. Smetana's in the blue and red, and he's going to go on a bit of a trip here. Sometimes you're thankful that we're watching a sim race. As he checks up, locks the brakes, spinning up ahead, and Smetana's in the wrong place.
Golly, that I think is the first time in quite some time that I've seen a Formula Ford car do a somersault in racing conditions. All started, though, with Petrus and Rocha having to check up a little bit, and that's just snowballed out of control from there. Look at Simon Ball! He sweeps around the outside, and he jumps into the race lead. Wasn't expecting that move, but he made it stick. In the meantime, though, he just set the tied fastest lap of the race with himself and Aeronome. Now, it should be noted that our graphics sometimes can get the matter of thousandths of a second a little bit askew. It was marked there as being 1/1000th of a second off between those two racers, but they did tie in the lap times as Yerkmani, Ian Anderson, and Christian Kabanka really squabbling up in this battle for 6th. Here they go, heading off through the middle sector right now. Side-by-side racing between Kabanka and Yerkmani, two Weekend Warriors veterans duking it out with Ian Anderson, a driver that you've covered many, many times before over in the officials, Howie, running right behind him as well.
That's one more spin, and that's going to lead to another incident off the back as well. Kevin Adrian's the one that catches the back of, I think that's Michael Varon. Also, one more, Andrew Love's also around. So even more checkups for drivers that are having their little spins and mistakes. Even when you run a lot of laps in qualifying, the track gets a bit reset. We'll replay this, Ron. Let's take a look at this.
Yeah, so let's see exactly how quickly stuff hit the fan. It was a half spin from Verone. He turned his tires into rectangles, trying to keep it going in a straight line. In the midst of that, Kevin Adrian just had to jerk the steering wheel in the other direction, heading out of 8 to try and avoid making contact. He didn't make contact with the car, did make contact with the wall, so that's going to really affect Kevin Adrian's race, I'm sure. Maybe one of the wheels got snapped off as a result of all that. And yet again, another driver having a check up through one of the turns. This time it's Love heading off through turn number 9. He gets caught out by that. The weight transfer, whenever you have to come to an abrupt stop in these Formula Fords, will put you on your butt quicker than a malfunctioning seesaw. So unfortunately for him, he's going to be down, currently slotted in 14th in this race. Do want to draw attention to this, though, kind of talking about the conditions throughout this season, as has been a consistent theme. It being winter, the late fall heading into winter here in the Northern Hemisphere. Track temperature is rather cool at the moment at only 67 degrees for the ambient temperature, 72 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not the coldest I've seen in recent Weekend Warriors competition, but it is still absolutely freezing for the tires on these cars.
And we're in France. I mean, I live pretty close to France, and so I can only estimate from England on the other side of the channel, but I can tell you that we're sort of a part of Europe that can get itself a little bit cold and chilly in the winter. Maybe not quite Nordic, but so I think from Philly, you probably have similar experiences. Certainly not a hot country is all I'm here to tell you. So yeah, the temperature can get affected. Is Aeronome on the inside looking to overtake Mikey Pollard. Simon Ball passed around the outside. Nom does it on the inside. Pollard seems to be struggling to hold into turn 1, no matter which way.
So Aeronome able to jump into P2. Now, Mikey Pollard finds himself in an interesting position, considering the gap that he has in the championship points, and also the fact that his main championship rival, we could say at this point, if Richard Harwood isn't even here. It's pretty much a surefire lock that Mikey Pollard is on track for a championship here in Season 4 of 2025 here in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors. But he's not really pushing the issue too much. I wonder why that is the case. Does he just want to bring it home clean and not have any sort of DNFs? Not exactly sure what the deal is for him, but hey, if he comes out of this race with a podium, it'll be fine. Maybe he's trying to do a little bit of fuel saving, worrying about the pit strategy a bit later on in this race. We'll just have to find out. He does have two leaders right in front of him, the two leaders behind him, I should say. Dmitry Lukanov, your leader in Spec 2, and Antonio Reese, your leader in Masters, slotted in 4th and 5th right behind him at the current moment. And, off the back of the discussion you just brought up a few moments ago, Howie, I think this is the first time since myself and Mr. Tim Cox were on the call for some Formula V Weekend Warriors action in Season 3 of 2024 that I've shared a commentary booth on a Weekend Warriors broadcast with somebody from Europe, somebody not in the States. It's Antonio Reese making a very early call to come down pit lane. That's out of the window. I wonder what may have gone on for him, because it looks like he's towed.
It looks like a little bit of lag that sort of caused him to disappear entering the pit lane. He did indeed just make an entry just like that, but I'm not sure what has happened to him.
He's out.
But he does, yeah, he has left the car. He does seem to be like blinking in and out, but no, he has definitely left that car for good. And Money as well, I think, might have done very much some of the same.
Oh no, I am getting bad flashbacks to the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors race at Mosport all the way back in Season 2 of 2024, where I think a third of the field got abducted by a UFO. And it's your two top runners in Masters as well. Jörg Mani, he's out. Antonio Reese, he's out. I think they're both connection drop-offs. Actually, I will amend that. It was a connection drop-off for Jörg Mani. That is how it's been marked on iRacing at the very least. Antonio, meanwhile, it's just saying that he manually disconnected. So I wonder what exactly the deal was for Antonio to cause him to drop out of this race. Monty cut and dry, just a simple connection problem. And all of this, it's given us a new leader in Masters in the form of Chris Murakami, and a new battle to talk about as well between Murakami and Alan Degas. This is a battle for 8th overall and the win in Masters.
Some of these classes getting quite close to each other. Even the Spec 2 drivers are getting closer. Told that Antonio races in VR, and as someone that used to be a VR driver, trust me, sometimes it just breaks and then you can't race anymore. So there's a chance that could have been a problem. We might find out more later. We're also apparently missing Jeff Webker due to a sprained ankle. So all sorts of things are befalling everybody in Weekend Warriors this week. Get well soon. As I call a little bit of incident there with Ian Anderson getting a bit slow through the corner, causes Christian Kavanka to sort of check up entering. A few drivers still getting a little bit slippy, waiting for someone to go around and down and back again, really.
Yeah, so let's take a look at a replay to see some of the stuff that has been going on. Not nearly as severe as the drama we had earlier on this race, but still not ideal. There's the wiggle going on there. That was Christian Kabanka running into the back of Ian Anderson and immediately having to snap that steering wheel in the other direction. Rather, one thing that I have noticed as of recent, at the very least, here in these Formula Ford cars, always talk about when it comes to broadcasting radical SR10s on iRacing, but I think the Formula Fords may be some of the most sensitive cars when it comes to weight transfer, at least on the road side of things, because if that weight transfer is just a little bit abrupt, even if it isn't fully smooth, the car's just gonna want to spear itself off the track at Mach 10.
You have to remember that you're sort of most of the weight in that thing, so that probably, the lighter the car is, the more sensitive it's going to be to that. Farron tries to make the inside work on turn 1. The first apex hasn't worked. The second, I thought almost, the momentum isn't there. The third one, there's a run, he washes wide. And that's contact with Ian Anderson. Both get away with it. Here comes Christian on the inside, though, to take advantage. Almost sends it free wide. He needs to get past this Spec 2 driver and start chasing down Ian again. Still not quite clear on exit, running up the hill.
Oh, and they are side by side between Verona and Cabanca, heading their way off through the top end of the circuit. And look at Chris Murakami out to gas as they want to get involved in this battle too. Side by side racing finally single files out as they head their way out of 6, in through 7, now through 8 and 9 at the bottom end of the track right about now. The track is so potent with the amount of elevation change that you've got in a rather short distance. Verona hops the berm a little bit. He runs wide through 9, and here comes Cabanca. Will he try and go for the move as they head their way through the kink of turn 10 into the hard braking zone, the hairpin of 11 at the top end of the circuit? He doesn't go for the move, but Murakami nearly went for a move on him. Chris Murakami, one of the most experienced and venerated drivers here in Weekend Warriors competition, running in the newest, this is the baby series with the Weekend Warriors competition, as Verona gets sideways. Cabanca checks up, and Murakami got to try and get that move done with contact being made 3 wide as they head their way through the start finish straight away across the line right about now. Heading off to start another lap to gas as Cabanca and Murakami go 3 wide into 1. That's not going to work. Contact made. That's Cabanca going up in the air, and that's also Murakami spinning around. And I think Alan DeGassa should have backed out that a little bit sooner, because 3 wide into turn number 1 does not end well.
I actually think there kind of is barely the space, but I think actually it's Cabanca on the outside who is the biggest problem here. Sort of cuts in, thinking maybe it's too wide. Nope, there is a car there that hasn't backed out in the middle, and that's going to lead to disaster. There's almost space for it, but everybody has to be ultra aware of each other, and that certainly was not the maximum awareness there.
Yeah, I think Murakami could have afforded to back out of it. When I was looking at that incident to start off with, I went by the usual racing adage of the last driver to get involved in the side-by-side racing should be the first one to back out of it. DeGas says he's come out of it smelling like a bed of roses. He's in 6th, holding on to the Masters lead, but that is... definitely an odd series of events that transpired for him to get there, including a dropout for Jurg Mani, who has rejoined after the connection problems that he confirmed with a message in the YouTube chat. But Mani down in P16, 1 lap down from Peter Smetana and about 2 laps off the lead. So probably not going to see him really get back into contention here in this race. Unfortunate to see Christian Cabanca get caught out in that drama as well. He was just the innocent bystander. One thing that we can say about this track here at Ledenon, it is you can very much so tell that it is French, in the sense that if one thing goes wrong, you will get your head chopped off.
Ron, I've done more broadcast review than anybody else in my career, and yet still sometimes you find a way to come out with the most incredible things. So, because that is one of the best Ronisms of the year. Indeed. You will get your head chopped off around here. I mean, France doesn't really come with many easy racetracks, does it? I mean, they got Magny Cours, which is pretty brutal. I mean, Le Mans is half straight, but then, like, there's got some tricky turns in it. We have Ledenon. There's not really much in iRacing that combines France with easy track to get yourself around. So you're onto something there.
You'll have to see if Paul Ricard becomes a part of the iRacing stable, considering it is going to be part of iRacing Arcade. Oh, did they announce that that's going to be a part of iRacing?
It did sneak into the last dev blog. That and Bahrain snuck into the last dev blog, so they will be happening. We are almost better, but not quite in this free car train.
Yeah, so there's news to me that Paul Ricard will be a part of iRacing. I remember driving that track on the last F1 game that I have for my Xbox, that being F1 2018. They had 19 and 20 being quite good games, and that's just since. But I may be slightly in the controversial opinion area here, but I kind of enjoy Paul Ricard. I think that is a good track. They put on some good racing, especially with the V's. Holy cow! Here we go, side-by-side racing. Yeah,
you're not wrong.
I think that would be very fun with the V's. I mean,
Paul Ricard's good. You're not wrong.
Yeah. It depends on what kind of car you put around there. Put F1 cars around that track, not going to be good racing, but there's not a lot of tracks that F1 can put on good racing nowadays.
F1 was decent there, all right? F1 was actually, like, had 1 terrible race and then a few quite good ones. So, you know, I just think people rule them out, that's all. This free car chase, Murakami sort of running a little bit into the back of Andrew Hertz, but no true harm, no foul, as I think most of these drivers are pretty much happy staying in place for now. It's up front here with Ball and Gnome. where it's really going to explode soon, I think. It's gotten down to a 10.5 at times. Still, Gnome hasn't made that pass successfully yet, but all it's going to take is one attempt, and we're almost halfway.
Yeah, so getting closer and closer to that halfway mark. Pretty much all the pit stops that we have seen thus far have been down to connection problems or incidents as Simon Ball gets all crossed up, heading off through turn number 2. He keeps it going in a straight line. Had to lock it up, though. He's feeling the pressure from Aeronome. Aeronome applying that pressure to Ball. Let's see if we may see these racers decide to battle out sooner rather than later. They are certainly close to it. We'll have to see if there will be a dice between those two racers. Meanwhile, Jim Brewster and Andrew Herds, they continue to battle for 8th. This is a trio of cars. Trio barely. Chris Murakami is teetering within that 1 second above and below that. So he sometimes gets involved in the battle just as a distant observer. Sometimes he's a little bit farther behind. You can never really gauge it with Murakami. We'll have to see if he can finally break through, try and close up that gap to himself and Herds. And as I say that, dips below a half a second for the first time in quite some time. In the meantime, though, we got a battle going on at the front still between Ball and Aeronome. Now, if these racers, pardon the pun, if they decide to play Ball a bit too much here, you got to keep an eye on Dmitry Lukanov and Mikey Pollard because they are right there to pounce.
This is definitely one of those races where you don't force the issue. Instead, you wait for those mistakes to open up. But what have we seen but a few mistakes around here? Even hot lapping the place is very, very hard. So, that's what's led to disasters. And don't even count on these top two, not potentially making that error themselves. And one of them just sort of going over and going around. That's wide for Ball, way too wide. And that's Aeronome on the lead talking about mistakes.
Yes, so there of that number 98 machine gets that move done in nice fashion. He capitalized on the moment, jumps into that spot, but now it has brought Lukanov and Pollard back into it somewhat. That gap hasn't completely disappeared, but it's certainly a heck of a lot lower than it once was. Meantime, though, we look at Daniel Verona and Jim Brewster. They're in this battle for P7 currently, and there's Brewster going for the dive. That's P8, my apologies there. And that's Brewster holding into that spot. Andrew Herds right behind Chris Murakami, slotted in 10th. And all this excitement, I'm getting my damn battles confused.
I mean, get 20 Formula 4s out on there for 40 minutes. I think I'd get myself easily confused. Very interesting that Lukanov has really closed in that gap to that P1 now, but we're looking back at Jim Brewster nonetheless, as it's all sort of three-car trains. This one hasn't truly developed. These cars are in sort of different classes, but still, they'd want to get track position to try and catch up ahead of drivers. We have 5 DNFs on the track already, by the way. Ledenon has been brutal, and this is without any of the rain that some of the official races have been seeing. So this track does claim victims. This is one of those places where, as much as I love it, it does feel like a dereliction of duty of care to give it to rookies. I mean, I guess they had to do it, but this is a bit of a trial by fire to try and get a new driver around here. I guess you're teaching them valuable skills.
Yeah, teaching them valuable skills, potentially. I mean, I think I could probably say that's kind of like a humiliation ritual, putting this as part of some rookie classes on iRacing. Yes, it is part of base content, but I think there's some tracks that are also part of base content that would probably be a little bit easier for racers to kind of get their hands on. I mean, this track, even just looking at the track map, it looks like if you tried to handle something that was that shape in real life, you'd probably get a couple of cuts on your hands. So this track is just a big basket of challenges, and these racers have certainly proved it. Jörg Mani has dropped out of this race once again, and I'm going to check to see whether or not that was any sort of connection issue. Yes, it was. So I think Jörg Mani is going to have a very strongly worded letter to his internet service provider, probably telling them 16 different ways in which why they should make a slice of pie. Andrew Herds holding on to P9 at the moment, just got a move put on him by Jim Brewster a little bit earlier on in this lap. This battle's now 4 cars strong, with Andrew Love slowly but surely bringing himself into the fold.
These gaps, some of these gaps are certainly tightening up, and half a second is enough of a gap to start pushing on someone around here. The car's sort of always within sight. Our fastest lap runs for the leader, Aeronome there, but Simon Ball's not at all done. I've just noticed our first pit stop of the race. Looks like Daniel Varron has decided to make the jump in, and that one's probably actually scheduled.
Yes, I start seeing some pit stops already. I would usually say that the pit window is firmly open once Mr. Stevie Ray Series admin comes down pit lane, but he's not out there on the racetrack. Then we'd usually see some of the other Masters racers be the first. I thought that it was going to be Antonio breaking through and being the first driver to come down pit lane, but no, I guess it was VR issues that eventually took him out of this. He's slotted in 17th, out of contention. That Masters battle is still on. I gotta wonder, though, will we see a battle in that Masters category? Because it's about 9 seconds, 9, 8 seconds, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, whatever the gap may be between Alan Degassis and Jim Brewster. It's certainly not like the two drivers are right on top of each other. So I wonder whether there is the possibility that some sort of chicanery can go on in that Masters category once again, and we could have a battle. Speaking of a battle, Ball and Gnome go side by side. Ball sets a fast lap of the race last time by, and he jumps into that top spot.
So those runs down the straight are very real, so much for me completely denying their existence. So it does seem as if get a good exit and you will slipstream through someone, but it's not an easy turn one to really size people up on. We've seen multiple different angles of attack and multiple different passes. This was another one that happened up through the inside, as the outside is usually the preferable line that somebody would run by themselves. That's been swept right in, but again, we've seen the passes around the outside too. We've seen a little bit of everything entering that turn one. And really, it's going to be a game of sort of trading a little bit back and forth. This isn't a race, though, where getting that run makes it inevitable. You really have to earn it with some bravery and a good exit.
Yeah, I think the matter of doing well here at Ledenon is just having an extreme sense of bravery, being able to tackle the insane elevation change on this track, some of the very bizarre corners that you can't really get anywhere else on iRacing, or really just the world of motorsports altogether. You just gotta be brave running around this racetrack, especially in these cars, which, as we talk about many, many times in the shows that we do together, Howie, these cars are a pain in the butt.
It's long out there, like 40 minutes, like it does kind of fly. I don't do enough iRacing to know, but also like it's always a little bit stressful, and it gets more stressful the more stressful the track is. So, you know, eventually, like any place that's just going to encourage you to make little mistakes or overstep the line is eventually going to lead to trouble. And also, notice the track getting a whole lot darker. Cloud cover has risen over. I don't think there's any chance of rain here today, but certainly it's looking a little bit gloomy out here on the track. Andrew Hurd not getting past into turn one, or not getting past Jim Brewster into turn one more like, but the run almost presented itself. Yeah, there's definitely no rain chance, but definitely does seem just a little bit on the if you look at the chopper, you'll see just how moody it is out there on the track now. I've had that view the whole time.
Yeah, the slow motion broadcasting chopper, thankfully, running a little bit on the higher end earlier on. Now, however, as we get closer and closer to the end, that cloud cover dropping down, that car, that helicopter, I should say, maybe gonna have to fall a little bit lower than usual, which is not ideal here at slow motion broadcasting. We're the only iRacing broadcaster that has to have insurance protection for the drones, choppers, and blimps to protect themselves from race car impacts. You'll learn that a little bit later on here in this broadcast, how exactly why we have that insurance plan in place. But yeah, I think it is slowly but surely getting darker. I think in terms of the time in the session as well, it is slowly getting later on. So getting closer to sunset, the cloud cover building. I think these racers are feeling the burn, or the lack thereof, as the track temperatures start to drip down a little bit. It's gone down only 1 degree Fahrenheit, which is not too much, but in these finely tuned race cars, that can make a difference. I think we are starting to see that with Simon Ball really starting to be a bit more skittish out there on circuit.
Tyres will also be heating up. I must say that 1 Fahrenheit means almost nothing to someone that lives in Celsius. If you told me 1 Celsius, I'd be like, oh yeah, 1 Celsius. Is 1 Fahrenheit even something that a human being notices out there? You know, you'd need to know more than me, but could still just be that. Yeah, it's a combination though. The track gets colder, the tyres get warmer. There is an equilibrium state somewhere in there. Really, it's just going to be about a fatigue at this point, I imagine.
Yeah, that was one thing that I do occasionally bring up on these Weekend Warriors broadcasts. Just staying with it throughout can be a little bit tricky. 40 minutes is not the longest league race that you can have in the world. Frankly, it's not the longest that we have here on SNB for that matter, but it can be a little bit lengthy. And these racers will feel a little bit of burnout as they get further along. This is a car where you have to stay with it mentally, and a track as well that you got to stay with it mentally. It's like if anyone ever drove on one of the F1 games racing around Singapore, especially back in the older days before they added in that slightly longer straightaway in the final sector, it is a brutal combination because you got to stay with it mentally all throughout. You can't really afford to joke about, otherwise you're just going to find yourself off the circuit. I see a pit stop from Ian Anderson. He's come down pit lane. The 145 machine has jumped these two drivers up another spot as Jim Brewster and Andrew Hurd's going to try and swap a route. Hurd sweeps around the outside off through the first three turns, but not going to be able to get that move done as Jim Brewster holds on to it, gets the apex first through turn number 2, and gets out in front through 3.
Drivers still just have their nerve. Ian Anderson, by the way, entering pit lane with a black flag on the pit entry because car doesn't have a pit limiter, and these races will force you to get into that lane properly. I'm keeping an eye just to see. It must have been speeding. It must have been speeding. It looks like he enters properly from my perspective, and not even flagrantly, but like just enough to set that up and to completely spoil your race, send you to the back. Meanwhile, this pack really starting to compress. Drivers still a few to peel into the pit lane, so it's all a little bit variable out there. Our top 8 haven't stopped, so they're due relatively soon, but they're getting quite close to each other on the track. These packs feel like they're getting bigger.
Yeah, we get to the end of this race and we have a convergence of the racers in the field as Simon Ball once again has a bit of a wiggle, and here comes Aero Gnome. He goes for it as they head their way down the hill into turn number 5. He jumps into that race lead. Ball with the snap. I could just barely notice it from that camera angle that we had, but it was enough to lose out on the race lead. And you could tell that was a close quarters moment based off the fact that I was talking so quick for a brief period of time. I think I could probably start a career as a cattle auctioneer. Let's take a look at that replay. He hit the curb a little bit too much. They may seem completely flat, but these Formula cars do not like curbs of any variety, and that nearly ended in contact as well as they headed their way into 5. That was oh so close to the braking zone.
Getting a little bit sketchier and sketchier and sketchier. I don't want today to end in tears. Okay, I'm used to enough of 1600 races ending in tears, even though I must say these drivers are fantastic out there on the track, and I love, they're bringing back my love for this little car, let me tell you that. I knew they would do it the whole time, but still, like one little mistake, one little twitch, and then a race that was building can just sort of accidentally cascade into something. I really don't want it to end like that. I want this to be a hard-fought race to the end. I've got to say, Dmitry Lukhanov, he fought for a win at Sonoma. I don't think he's going to push the issue too hard on a fighting, 2 drivers fighting for the win here in Spec 1, but incredible performance yet again, just gapping the Spec 2 field. One of those cases where somebody's just itching for a promotion. I think it'll be a very competitive drive if he gets to run in Spec 1.
Yeah, I think Dmitry Lukhanov will probably make that step up into Spec 1. And yeah, I gotta say, as of recent here in the Weekend Warriors world, we've seen many more racers make that leap from Spec 2 into Spec 1 and really hit the ground running in terms of competitiveness. In my time covering the Weekend Warriors full-time, a little bit earlier on in my time covering this series, many a racer kind of ran into some troubles when they made that step up from Spec 1, from Spec 2 into Spec 1, I should say, whether it be here in the Formula Fords on Saturday for the Vs, or even later on today for the Spec Racer Fords. Can occasionally see some drivers dip down in performance, but as of late here in the Weekend Warriors, we've seen many a racer make that leap from Spec 2 into Spec 1, and they've hit the ground running. Dirk Braun over on the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors, as much as he hasn't gotten a win, he's still been very strong in that series, and here in the Formula Ford, seen the same case. Parvinder Ladar over on the Formula Vs has been able to get a win, get a pole thus far this season, as Simon Ball makes a call to come down pit lane. I just realized I'm a podent, I don't know it.
Ball has been sliding the tyres around more than any other driver up near the front, and I wonder if that's going to punish him near the end of the race. He's going to hope to come out in clean air here, as only a few more drivers are yet to make their required stop in this sort of chain up at the front. A lot of people saving it to the latest possible moment, but I think that's sort of, if you're not trying something unusual, usually that's sort of a default strategy, is just go until it's empty, meaning we might see a bit of a flood all in one go. Simon Ball exits probably in 5th. I don't know if he'll lose 6th to Brewster. Either way, he has extremely clean air here. It's about 23 seconds to the car ahead, leading the pack right now, or sort of leading the drivers who have stopped by quite some margin. If he can get some good laps in, he'll be very, very close when the drivers up front stop.
Yeah, and now that we've had the first driver up towards the front of the field to break away and make that call to come down pit lane, we're probably going to be seeing everybody follow in suit in the not too far off future, mentioned by Tam in the YouTube chat, and that is a fantastic point. First off, nice to see you in the chat, Tam. Always love to see her in the chat. But Ball was really putting a number on the tires, getting really wiggly, really sideways. Don't really have to worry about that too much, though, in these races in terms of coming down pit lane for tires. As the front two come into the pits, that's Aero Gnome and Dmitry Lukanov from the lead in Spec 1 and Spec 2, respectively. Mikey Pollard going to stay out for another lap. Now, Pollard has been able to put in some very good strategies in his time here in this series, was just far enough behind whereby he wasn't getting involved in the battles, but he was probably able to just run his own race, march to the beat of his own drum, and get enough of a draft heading down the start-finish straightaway on this circuit, whereby he can maybe do a bit of fuel saving. So keep an eye on Pollard to maybe impress.
Keeping an eye on where Ball's going to land now on this Eastbound finishes out lap. He's going to run very, very close to the other two drivers. I think he's going to come out behind of them, though. He did not get a stellar enough in lap. In fact, Lukanov is in the way. Now, Lukanov's jumped up a place in those stops. That must have mean that either Lukanov had the best in lap or Ball had a poor in lap and out lap, because that's quite a significant gap that might have just set this up for Aero Gnome to lose all pressure now.
Yeah, so I think the in-lap and out-lap certainly decided the battle between Lukanov and Ball. For Gnome, meanwhile, it was a very quick run down in pit lane compared to 12.6 seconds down in the pit stall for Dmitry Lukanov at 11.1 for Simon Ball. He spent 10.9, just about 11 seconds down in pit lane for Aero Gnome. That was a very, very strong pit stop from him, and it certainly reflected in the time that he was able to gain. Mikey Pollard, meanwhile, stays out for another lap. He is the only racer in this race not to come down pit lane at some point. Now, though, you gotta wonder when he needs to stop, because he has to do it at some point. Just a matter of how he can make it work.
Interesting to hang out for this long. Is there some fuel-saving game at play that allows them to do this? Because I imagine the drivers behind just stopped when they had to. And Pollard might be trying to do some stretching. Obviously, you save as much as you can. And then you end up with a shorter time in the pits, 28 seconds. You lose about 37 in the lane. So he's certainly not going to be able to keep P1. I don't think there's any miracle that can shave a whole 10 seconds off your pit stop. But if this is worth a place or two, then that's good. Here's Simon Ball on the inside down the hill. He really needs to clear Lukanov, who I don't know how hard he's going to be holding off someone who isn't in the same class. But oh, there is a bit of a defense here. Lukanov really, really wants to go a little bit elbows out. Clean racing nonetheless, though. Ball has to switch back on the inside. Lukanov quite wide. Still, there's more momentum on the inside this time. It's not going to be completely clear, but oh no, that's not how we wanted that to end.
That's not how he wanted to end at all, and Lukanov and Ball come to blows as they head their way through turn number 8. Meanwhile, Mikey Pollard, he's come down pit lane. We gotta keep an eye on that gap between himself and Aero Gnome, whether or not he's been able to work out the strategy to perfection and is able to hold on to the race lead or not. Coming up into the final 5 minutes of this penultimate race of the season, so now is crunch time. Pollard out away on pit lane. He is trundling his way to the pit exit. A little bit longer in the stop than Aero Gnome, so this may come out the way of the number 78 car, as Pollard's still down pit lane, hitting that pit lane speed limit line now, but not enough. He's been able to jump his way into second, but no more than that. P1 for Aero Gnome. He holds on to a 1.8 second gap with only a handful of laps left to go. It looks like Aero Gnome is destined for victory, as Pollard gonna still pick up more points on his way to a championship. Dmitry Lukanov set to finish this race in third, and one of the main deciding factors in that was this coming together through turn number 8.
And there was a little bit of the forbidden netcode in that one. And good news for Ball's race is that yes, this kills his chase to go further ahead, but that car's not damaged and it gets collected back up, and he's going to hold on to that P3 in class. So the most he can do is rue a position. I mean, I doubt he was going to be catching the lead. Maybe, no, not even Pollard may have been. I don't even know if he's lost that much to it. So he could at least be thankful about that. But that was just unfortunate. I just think an accident with two people in a tricky corner and cars washing out just a bit. At least it's not total drama out here in Ledenon.
Yeah, we have not had a total drama island situation out here on the racetrack. The Gen Z viewers will get that reference if there are any tuning into this broadcast. But Mikey Pollard holding on to P2, Lukanov in third. Now, one of the main reasons why Lukanov, I think, want to fight that off a little bit harder than you usually would, should be noted, of course, that these drivers are scored based off of their overall finishing position, not just based off how they finish in class. And although these racers are scored in terms of the championship points, they're grouped together by their class. So the Spec 2 racers have their own championship battle, Spec 1 respectively. I always personally keep tabs on who can score the most amount of points throughout the season. And Dmitry Lukanov, even with missing the first race of the season, he has put together a fantastic championship run both in Spec 2 and I believe right now he scored the second most amount of points out of anybody in this Formula Ford Weekend Warrior season, only behind Mikey Pollard, and only 3 racers are above that 700-point bracket, the other being Jörg Mani, who, of course, is out of this race, slotted in 15th, so he's not really going to add to that tally too much here today. Dmitry Lukanov has been on fire throughout this season. To allude to the point that he said a bit earlier on here, Howie, I really want to see what Lukanov can do next season once he makes that leap up into Spec 1.
I will support anybody that puts a Tasha on the side of their car. So Lukanov, go for the outright championship. That's all I'll say. I'm impressed. Watching my first race of the Weekend Warriors, of course, and I'm very, very, very impressed by. But this doesn't always happen. I notice a lot of championships with like pro and am drivers. There's a couple AMs that punch above their weight and really, really, really surprise you, and you end up watching them for coming seasons. And you wouldn't be surprised if you saw them coming, when we put it like that.
As we take a look at a replay of some drama going on here with Daniel Verone, he ran into the trouble a bit earlier on in this race, but I don't think he was out of the woodwork after that. This is heading off through the final series of corners into the turn 14 chicane to bring this lap to a close. Hit the curb, and I think just landing it and slamming it back down onto the ground caused that car to loop around. The weight transfer in these Formula Fords has probably been the story of the day. It has been absolutely brutal seeing these racers either dealing with the elevation change, the curbs, or both at the same time.
It will be the white flag the next time we come around the track and make it 28 total race laps, and Aeronome has had to fight for it for sure. There's been good battles all around the track. We've seen where drivers have chosen to make those moves and chosen to pass each other very heavily through turn 1. We've seen mistakes claim many on the field, and maybe even a requirement for the EMT today. It's sort of, you get it all in the 40 minutes of the Weekend Warriors. Ain't that spectacular? White flag for Aeronome in just a moment when he crosses the line. And all it's going to take is wrapping up one more. Every lap's a struggle here, but it's been a very, very good race.
Yeah, so with a white flag in the air, Aeronome looks to try and become a winner in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors competition once again and join a rather exclusive club of winners thus far this season in the Spec 1 category. Mikey Pollard, of course, has now 4 wins to his name thus far this season. Maurizio Nazelli, who looked to be a championship favorite a little bit earlier on, has 2. Tim Hendrickson was able to grab a win at Okayama a bit earlier on this season in race number 3. Sam Spinell won the race following that at Bathurst, with Ian Joyner grabbing the W at Road Atlanta. Jake Williams also should deserve a mention. He won at Brands Hatch a bit earlier on in this championship as well. But Aeronome looks to try and become the first-time winner since Williams back at Brands Hatch and break up a streak of would be 3 straight wins for Mikey Pollard between Long Beach, Oran Park, and Sonoma. But he's a little bit farther back. 1.6 seconds is the gap as they head their way off through into turn number 11 for the final time in this this race. Aero Gnome holding on to a comfortable margin, doesn't have to take too many risks as he has his way through 12 into 13, 14, and 15 for the final time in this race. It's been a comfortable drive for him, even though he has had some battles, has some sideways snaps. He's been able to cope with the pressure brilliantly as he heads his way across that start-finish line now. It's got to be victory here at Ledenon for Aero Gnome. He is victorious over Mikey Pollard in second. He holds on to a comfortable gap and will be your champion-elect in Spec 1. Meanwhile, Dmitry Lukanov rounds at your podium in third once again. That is now 4 straight overall podiums for Dmitry Lukanov, 4 straight wins in Class 2. Dmitry Lukanov has been a super impressive racer throughout this season and another impressive drive.
Well, look out for that driver, let me put it like that. And a big shout out to Mikey Pollard, by the way, for really making up those places on strategy. Apparently, yet again, according to you out here on the field. If that's something that's regularly done, it would not surprise me that he could pull it off again, making up multiple places at the right place at the right time. This is the last tricky technical track on the schedule because I am one of the people responsible for putting the cup layout of Watkins Glen on the schedule next season. Let me special layout. So this is the last real driver's test before we go to the all-out melee. And really, a lot of drivers were very much tested there.
Yeah, they had a test. They had a lot of skills that they had to show off here today to try and get the W and just get a good result. Looks like all of them have. I gotta wonder, will we see the kind of stepped pit lane be used in some of the jumping and chaos shenanigans that we see here in this race? Usually see it in the Formula Vs, usually see it in the Spec Racer Fords. Formula Fords, I'm not sure if we have anybody going for some jump shenanigans out there on the racetrack. So here's a Weekend Warriors tradition for you here, Howie. At the end of the race, they have the burn them up, crash them down wreckfest, where everybody figures out the easiest and most efficient way to turn a Formula Ford, Formula V, or a Spec Racer Ford car into an unrecognizable pile of metal pulp. And with some of the jumps on pit lane, that is usually what we see, and there is the reason why we have got insurance protection to protect from race car impacts for our drones, blimps, and helicopters.
Love to see it. Is it really a real league if you don't try and destroy the cars at the end? Full results due just any moment now. 20 cars took the field. I think we lost 5 over race duration. And a lot of them had to earn it well. Aero Gnome, I'll take the top 10 because I was the one talking, Ron, I'm sorry. Aero Gnome wins the race over the line. Mikey Pollard in P2. Our Spec 2 winner, Dmitry Lukanov, over several drivers on the way. Simon Ball dropped the few to make it to P4. Our Masters winner is Alan Degassis in P5, ahead of Daniel Varon, Andrew Hurd, Chris Murakami, Jim Brewster, and Andrew Love.
And then looking through the rest of the field, we have got Ian Anderson slotted in 11th. Want to preemptively thank Ian Anderson for sponsoring the season finale broadcast in 1 week's time here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Paul Jackson finishes right behind in 12th. Peter Smetana in 13th after some aerial acrobatics a little bit earlier on that he was involved in. Michael Nelson finishes this race in 14th. Really, the last of the drivers actually take the checkered flag. They'll have Jörg Monty, Krisha Kabanka, Antonio Reese, Kevin Adrian running at your first page of results with Todd Shuey and Peterson Rocha all DNFing from this race. Scott Russell, meanwhile, did not take the start. So those are your drivers classified here in round number 11 of the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. If you have enjoyed this broadcast, how about you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the racing action. But it looks like we may have the opportunity to have a chat with Aero Gnome at the end of this broadcast. Put on a rather commanding drive and was able to grab the victory. So let's drag him in to have a quick little chat here. Aero, welcome into the broadcast booth. First time that I think I've seen you run in this series and a little bit here in the Formula Ford. So how was it out there in your series return?
Yeah, it was, I think, 2 years or more when I raced. So yeah, I didn't know my pace, so I practiced all week, learning the track and all.
Yeah, it worked out fantastically for you here in this race, but it was not an easy fight. You had a lot of battling throughout with Simon Ball and Mikey Pollard up there, along with Dmitry Lukanov. So I want to ask you how it was battling out for that long.
Yeah, it was so easy to make mistake, and if you make this mistake you're offline and it's easy to pass, but yeah, it was very, very tough. Like I said, my first time in 2 years playing iRacing, so yeah, lots to learn.
Yeah, I think I said this a bit earlier on in this broadcast, and I'll say it once again. This is the first time that I've seen you race in one of these Weekend Warriors races since, I think it was our old pal Tim Cox who was on the call at that point in time many, many moons ago. But Aero, thank you for joining us here in this race. Well done on the win. Are we going to be seeing you out there on the track again in Formula Fords, or are we going to seeing you hit the racetrack in 2027 next time?
No, I think I will try to keep doing it. Let's see how long it goes.
Well, we certainly love to see you out there on the racetrack here, and we'll keep our fingers crossed to see you out there on the racetrack, maybe even for the season finale in 1 week's time at Watkins Glen. But Aero, before we let you go and celebrate this race win, we'll let you give any thank yous or shout outs.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Edgar, who's keeping me posted on the iRacing, and all the league admins here, and all the drivers, and you guys in the booth.
Yeah, thank you as well for joining us here in the booth, Aero. Well done on the race win, and looking forward to seeing you out there on the racetrack, wherever it is in the not too far off future.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you as well. That right there was Aero Gnome, our race winner. I think that may be the first time that I've ever had the opportunity to have a chat with him. I recognize the name now. It was the season before I started covering Weekend Warriors action, back when it was Tim Cox and our old pal and our colleague, Mr. Charles Bochelle, who were on the call for those broadcasts at that point in time. Charles will be back in the commentary booth in 1 week's time, taking today off to celebrate Thanksgiving with his family. But Howie, that was a pretty darn good race here at Ledenon. Bit of a bloodbath for sure, but this track kind of leads to it.
But not the sort of like elbows out like bloodbath that makes you groan, but more the sort of can you hang in there and hang on? And yes, unfortunately, some of you may die, but that is a sacrifice that we are willing to make out here for a challenging, fun race, and one that was contended at the front. You know, that lead was built out after a while, but it didn't start that way. It did have to be earned, make a few good passes, get the places back, and then finally get the good in and out laps. I think it was a very, very well earned and fun win.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of storylines to talk about on our Formula Ford official broadcast that we do. I will not shout that out just because of my status here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, but I will say it's on another network tomorrow afternoon, around about the same time, albeit a little bit later on than these broadcasts here for the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors. But we got a lot of action to look forward to here on Slow Motion Broadcasting before we talk about shows on other networks. Actually, run through that right now. Coming up a little bit later on today, of course, we've got the Spec Racer Fords running at Jerez for round number 10 of the Spec Racer Ford season. XSLR going to be rounding off the month of November here on Slow Motion Broadcasting in style with the rally jumpy cars at Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park. And between the other downtime between the other Spec Racer Ford show and that XSLR broadcast, just tune in to some of the shenanigans at Sonoma 1 week ago. That was probably the hardest I've ever laughed on a broadcast, and that's really saying something, because occasionally the methane that comes out of my mouth on these shows sometimes gives me the giggles. Sim Racers Group F4 action will be running off their season at Barber this upcoming Tuesday, and then Wednesday we've got you booked with Extreme Motorsports Ferrari Road and Oval Challenge action at Okayama. SRG F3 going to be at the exact same track later on, and then of course next weekend we have got you booked at, not with XSLR, but with the season finales for the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors at Brands Hatch, the Formula V Weekend Warriors at Brands Hatch, I should say, the Formula Fords at Watkins Glen, and the Spec Racer Fords running at Winton on the national circuit, where it's probably going to be scalding hot because it's summer down there in Australia. And also Liberty Bell running at Okayama. I don't know what it is about Okayama being such a popular track here on iRacing. Added yesterday for the Formula Vs, have it this upcoming week with F-Rock and F3, and then Liberty Bell with the MX-5 is going to be running there. So very odd how that works, but hey, gives you a very good reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the racing action. I want to thank you, Howie, for being here in the broadcast booth. You and I do a heck of a lot of broadcasts with these cars, but nice to have you here on Slow Motion Broadcasting here for this broadcast. And once again, I want to thank the sponsor of today's broadcast here on SMB, that being Window Shadow Pro Photo Studios. Head on off to www.windshadowstudios.net for more information. Wind Shadow. I apologize. Wind Shadow Photo Studios. I will blame my dyslexia for that there. But I think for this broadcast here, for round number 11 of the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors here at Ledenon, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Maunz, Howie Burroughs joining me in the commentary booth, and Guido Marzucchi working on the cameras and the graphics in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for tuning into the action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting today, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.